So, yeah, getting this thing started, how would you describe what exactly it is that you do? What is your dharma here?
Yeah, interesting question because sort of the path that I've ended up on is has sort of led me to this this sort of pathless path place of it's not really doing anything crazily. So of course I have a meditation center, creating films, all this stuff is happening, but yet the paradox or the sort of irony of it is it's all pointing to being, to our true nature. So it seems like a lot of activity, this whole Awaken the World initiative, and the creation of all these different materials, but it's all pointing to the being that is ever present. So
Hmm.
so when you say, what are you doing, like the I that I truly am is just here, just being,
Hmm.
but yet there's all this activity of worldly stuff happening. So on that level, retreats and physical and online retreats, which are engaging in sadhana, which is the practices or the non-doing that leads to samadhi,
Hmm.
basically.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the work of you is to lead others to this sense of samadhi, this sense of no doership, essentially.
Yeah, or in Taoism they would say Wu Wei.
Mm.
It's or Wei Wu Wei. It's doing, not doing. So it's not escaping from the mind into a sort of witness that's transcending life, but rather um, recognizing that awareness is already inherent within everything. So the samadhi state is a state of fully allowing the mind, fully allowing the world to be exactly as it is. So there's happening, but there's no sense. The sense of I that is this little doer. Is the question that how do we let go of that little I that has these preferences, of wanting. It's like, if I believe that some of my doing is going to, lead to happiness, if I have to rearrange something in the matrix to lead to happiness, then, that's the illusion or the delusion
Mm.
that something has to be done. So there's like an effortless effort that starts to just naturally unfold when we get that doer out of the way.
Mm.
So if someone were to look at my life now, it seems like there's a lot happening. There's movies, music, and things. We're creating a self-inquiry app, right now. So there's a lot of things manifesting. But the difference now to where I was, say 25 years ago, is that there was this effortful um, kind of doer that would suffer if it didn't get what it wanted in the external world.
Uh-huh.
And to me, that's what this path is about. It's about letting go, sort of slipping more into the stream of what's happening. And
Mm.
and there's like a big mind that's sort of orchestrating everything in the universe. It's like this whole trip that we're on. It's like this river going in a certain direction,
Yep.
and it's like we're, if we're in that little doer, it's like we're in a boat, trying to rearrange everything for our own purposes, but yet we're still going down that river.
Yeah.
And so to me, there's an aligning with life, or an aligning with the Tao that
Yeah.
starts to happen
Yeah.
when we get that little doer out of the way.
That damn doer. Yeah. Hmm. Aligning
Mhm.
with the logos for sure. Yeah. The uh
Mhm.
the metaphor of the river for sure. I feel as though when one thinks they are the doer, you almost go to the opposite way of the river, the opposite way of the stream. Ultimately, yeah, you are working your way down the stream. You can fight it all you want. We're working our way down the stream of God, you could say, but we do have uh, the presumed free will to resist it all we want. And you're saying when we let go of the sense of doership, the sense of trying to change up how the stream flows, um, when we let that go, suffering is also let go, and we find a little bit more ease and less resistance into the goings on of life altogether.
Yeah, yeah, because essentially, our energy is that stream, that
Yeah.
aliveness, the
Mm-hmm.
aliveness within us. So that aliveness, it can go into that little character, with its preferences and its craving and aversion, or it can be free, and aligned with life. and and that's the thing, when we get ourselves out of the way, we really don't know how it's going to go, because
Yeah.
it's like attuning to the dance of life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting thing for the mind, because the mind really becomes a don't know mind. It becomes a like a not knowing mind. When it lets go, it moves from like being in the driver's seat to the passenger seat,
Mm-hmm.
and within the conditioned self, there's this sense of wonder that starts to come as it sort of accepts its position, as the passenger, and there's an ease as well, because the little I doesn't have to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a huge burden. If this little I has to, complete some mission or some purpose, or some awakening,
Mm-hmm.
that's especially at the beginning of the path, the little I thinks I have to awaken, this, I have to complete this enlightenment process,
Mm-hmm.
and that little doer has to actually fail and give up, and
Yeah.
move to the back seat, and then, once the energy is not going into it as much, then life can be felt more and more. It's like the prana, or the chi, becomes free of those patterns, and then we can sort of attune more,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to life.
Mm. And it sort of becomes an effortless living
Mm.
through
Yeah,
ultimate
and it
surrender.
and it's
Sorry.
effortless in the sense that, you know like, there's still this is the interesting thing. There's still incredible, like, if you look at nature has this force within it, so there's this force within us to move in certain directions. So, but it's like the force of nature itself, that, we never lose that, and actually that force comes more alive as we go further on the path. So there's this energy that is alive, but it's not effortful, because the little doer is not the one doing it. It's not forced. It's actually more like an aligning. So it's more like, I feel more like, if you look at, little creatures in nature that are working a lot, like ants, or spiders building a web, or those sorts of things. There's an incredible amount of energy, like endless energy going into what they're doing, but they don't suffer. If you watch a spider, I had an experience at one of my first Vipassana retreats. I was in a room with a roommate, and I was watching this spider creating this web
Mm.
uh, for quite a bit of the retreat, and the roommate kind of wiped out the web, and the spider, just, patiently just started rebuilding it, and it was an incredible teaching, in
Mm.
that moment, to see there was no suffering. There was, it just does what it does.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a kind of falling into our natural state, where we're just doing, what feels right. It
Yeah.
feels alive. It's
Mm-hmm.
exciting. It's like, if you're a spider, you're doing the thing that you're meant to be doing.
Mm. Amen to
Mhm.
that. Well said.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
meditating in and on nature is very powerful for sure. Very powerful because we are not separate from nature, but that is the delusion that we've been conditioned into, that we are humans, we got our story and nature's out there. But
Mhm.
no, we're not. We are still that same organism, if you even want to call it an organism. We are that same orchestra that we can see and hear and play. We are a part of that. So essentially, the doer is our sense of separateness, right? Like our sense of separateness, not only from nature, but from each other, the universe, this giant mind, God, you could say. This doer creates suffering because it creates this illusion of separateness, that we are not a part of this superorganism. And that is going against the flow. And that is why we suffer, essentially, is because we're just living a lie. It's a giant lie.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Nature is such a beautiful mirror.
Mm.
For me, it was um, one of the things that became really apparent early in my path was, when I was very sick and I had a very pathological mind, and I moved out of the city into a beautiful little spot closer to nature. And I had this whole plan, to get into nature, buy a canoe, get on the river, and start this healing process. And nature, I did that. I got the canoe, I got onto the river, and my mind was still pathological. It was insane. The stress and the suffering was still there, and it was this perfect mirror. The nature was showing me, okay, this is not your environment. It's not anything out there. It's you. You need to, do something to address what's going on inside the mind and body. And
Mm.
it was a real wake up, when I found the perfect setting. All the external was perfect, yet I was still suffering and still out of sync. So,
Mm. Sort of poetic.
mhm, mhm.
So, yeah, on that note, let me ask you this one. What do you think is this something that we have to do, or maybe not do, in order to align with this natural sense of capital S self? What are some modalities, or where do we start? Maybe.
Yeah. So to me, there there okay, so the one teacher that I've worked with, he says there are sort of two paths. There's the path of wisdom, where we can recognize, how it works, basically. Or there's the path of suffering. And so life itself will sort of teach us eventually by tossing us around and
Yeah.
brutalizing us. So if we really want to know how it works, to me, the sadhana, or spiritual practice, is finding those things, putting them in place, so that there's an interrupt, first of all, in the pattern of me, an interrupt within the self structure. And within that space or opening, then there can be a recognition of our true nature. If we
Mm-hmm.
can stop that doing, and um, turn our attention, or our, become aware of awareness, however you want to say it,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that awareness that is ever present.
Mm.
So at the center and in our online um, stuff that we make available, there's certain things that I've found that will bring about those conditions. And so meditation, self-inquiry, for some people, entheogens, can these plant teachers can be very potent catalysts.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga practices, all of this stuff, all these things, and anything that's conditioned, where there's something I have to learn, or something I have to put in my body. All of those things I consider them like stepping stones. So they're not they're not the awakening, but they're things that will sort of loosen the bonds within the self structure that create a situation where that awakening is more likely to happen. And we get so many insights along the way, just seeing how the mind works and the pathological nature of the mind. So, for me, self-inquiry is my favorite tool. Doing kind of dyad self-inquiry, where you're working with a partner. It seems to be like an accelerated form of meditation, because you're just really on the hook with someone. You're looking into their eyes and you're forced to be present. And usually, for most people, all the conditioned patterns, the samskaras, start to come up to the surface very quickly.
Would you actually, I'm kind of curious about that. Would you be able to get into that, or is it hard to generalize? Is it more of like a,
Sure. Yeah, no, we
okay,
could totally get into it.
cool.
Yeah, so we could even do one if you want to do it.
Try it out, yeah.
Yeah, so the way it works, the person who's witnessing, so there's a pertinent person who is doing the inquiry, the person who's witnessing. So the witness, like if I do it for you right now, as a witness, I would say, tell me who you are. And when you receive that, you really feel that I truly want to know the truth of who you are. So you let that land in the deepest part of your being. And then, so there's an intention to directly experience your true nature, to experience who you are. So that intention to directly experience is not via the mind. So the mind doesn't have to figure it out or do anything. It's just like an intention to have a direct experience. And then you just report whatever comes up within the self structure as a result of that inquiry. So it's sort of a clearing process. So if I say, tell me who you are, you have that intention to really directly experience, and then you just see what moves in the mind and body. And so it could be, anything coming up, an emotion, a thought, feelings, and you just share that with the partner. And then, by sharing it, like the unconscious is just made of all these incomplete communications and experiences. So by sharing it, there's sort of an unburdening or a freeing of that inner energy, like an unblocking of that energy. So very quickly, when we do these retreats, like it's creating conditions of no escape for the ego. So we'll do this process for hours and hours continuously with very little break, and even in the breaks, you're encouraged to continue to inquire into who you are. And it's that continuity, continuous practice that eventually the energy becomes free, and that flip can happen.
Yeah. Sounds very powerful.
It's amazing. Do you want to try it?
Yeah. Let me just say one thing before we get into it. I'm definitely interested. It's because usually self-inquiry, from how I've heard it described, it's like just you ask the questions to you.
Yeah.
So when you like almost offshoot that to somebody else to ask the question, I feel as though that can create a very fascinating and powerful dynamic that I've never really thought of. So yeah, I almost feel like I do that anyway in these talks for the most part. It's not really like the intention, but I could see how intentionally going in with somebody very thoroughly and earnestly can create very transformative and transcending experiences. But yeah, let's get a little sample going on here now. If you'd like.
Awesome. A talk like this is very much like that. And at the retreats, really, when I'm speaking to people, it is like an inquiry, really. That's what the whole retreat is. It's sort of Okay, so the way it works, I just sort of connect to my intention to want to know who you are, and then I'll deliver the imperative. You can take as much time then to just sort of go inward or let it land, that intention to directly experience, and then just report whatever comes up.
Okay.
And we keep our eyes connected through this process.
Okay.
Tell me who you are.
I don't know. I don't know. Any words will fall short. I know my eyes do stray naturally. Sorry. I don't know. I feel it's not even a who, Dan. It's not a who. It's not a what. It's not a where. It's just a formless awareness. It's truly beyond words. I think that's the biggest question of them all. That's the biggest unanswerable question of them all. Who are you? That's really why I got started on the whole path. Who am I? What is all of this? And 200 episodes later, I still can't answer that question because I don't think it's truly answerable in a logical form. It's just something to be subjectively experienced and unfolded as time goes on, and it never ends. It never, I never reach a point, right, where I go, that's who I am. There's not a point I could tell you exactly what I am in some kind of sentence structure. Mm-hmm. Truly, it's just the immediate felt presence of the moment, and that's it. Shall I turn that back on you?
Thank you. Sure. So just for those who are listening, for the process itself, that is absolutely true. Logically, we'll never get an answer. There's no answer on the level of mind that will satisfy.
Yeah.
So when we engage in this process, eventually the mind will give up. You can imagine doing this for days, with a partner, so at the beginning,
I would just go home and be like, okay, I'm done.
So it's incredible. So very quickly, we come to a point where you did instantly, where the answer is not on the level of the mind. So then what happens in this process is it starts to get interesting. The mind kind of gives up. For some people, the mind gets very frustrated, this is stupid, or there can be a confusion that arises within the self structure. It's hey, what is this actually getting at? If it's not on the level of mind, what is it that this is pointing to? And so sometimes the imperative will be delivered, and there's just a feeling in the body, there's something that happens energetically, a little movement, or there can be these different things that start to unfold for different people. And there's a, the more the mind is sort of giving up, or quite often, the thing that happens is the mind gets exhausted. If you do this from 6 a.m. till 11 at night, by about 10 at night, people's minds are just like a pile of goo, so the mind has completely given up. And that's when things start to get really interesting, where the sense of I actually can flip out of the self structure, and there. So it's not that you get an answer on the level of mind, but the true I wakes up to itself. So there is an answer. It's you. You are the answer. So that flip can happen. And you touched on another thing of awareness. It's just the awareness that is here. And so quite often, I don't know your history, but I suspect you've had awakenings or Kensho type experiences. So you've seen the truth that presence or that awareness is it. So this, for people who've already had an awakening experience or a Kensho, then this becomes a clearing process. So it's literally just clearing the mind, whatever comes up within the mind and body. And it's a beautiful way to clear the samskaras and emotional blocks, or if people have traumas, anything like that. It's just a way to sort of stabilize in the awakened state.
Yeah.
Mm. And
Yeah.
to speak from that place as well. It's amazing to me. It's like the bridge between like the cushion and life. To be able to speak to someone from that place.
Truly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you feel as though that is almost the second stage of the path, if you really want to oversimplify it? The first step, this is an oversimplification, just throwing that out
Mm-hmm.
there. The first step is kind of getting the Satori moment, the Kensho, as you call it, the Samadhi, just kind of like getting a taste, a glimpse into our sense of no self. And then the second step is more so of the stabilization of that and the integration of that into the personality of Gary or of Dan or of whoever is listening, and being able to function at that wavelength, ideally at all times of our life. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah, I think that is it. And I think like for some people, like for myself, it's interesting because there are different sort of samadhis, or different sort of things that can happen to different people. So for me, what happened early on was I had like a Savakalpa samadhi, it was not finding out who I am. It was more like a peak experience of union and
Mm-hmm.
bliss, and being connected to the universe. And if that happens to somebody early on in their path, usually what happens is there's like a seeker that's born out of that, because
Oh,
they
yeah.
they they
Mm-hmm.
want that back. So that seeker, is that it can be very problematic. Quite often, that seeker can go on for a lifetime, and so if that, like a Savakalpa samadhi, if that happens first before finding out who you are, it can take you way down on a path of seeking, and sort of a spiritual path where you explore everything, and try, because people are trying to get back to that state. But your true nature is not a state. Your true nature is ever present. It just is what it is. It's just awareness itself. So
Yeah.
so I think, for me, what I love to see is, when people come to retreats, it's great if they'll have an awakening to their true nature first,
Mm-hmm.
before having these peak sort of direct experiences or human experiences, because those will unfold the more we're sort of abiding as that awareness. We start to have these more and more direct experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have those experiences first, then we it's very, very tricky to not seek them if we don't recognize the awareness that is ever present.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then so the stabilizing then, I think, becomes, seeing how that whole process works. So I'm not seeking a state or trying to get back any experience, but I just recognize that awareness that is ever present, and then that becomes my practice. Just recognizing, or just being,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, is
Mm-hmm.
it. There's nothing to do. Once we know who we are, then even meditation is just being who we
Yes.
are. there's
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing to do. And
Life becomes the meditation.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, whatever's arising, then we start to investigate the same way we would in doing a self-inquiry dyad or on the cushion. There's phenomena arising. There's, maybe a contraction within the self structure. So we see that, we recognize, that that's happening, but we know who we are. So we know who is experiencing that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It's powerful stuff. It's
Mhm.
powerful stuff. Oh wow, this is a great talk. Um, mm, yeah, spiritual ego. That can be a very pesky trap, that's for sure. And I'm pretty sure I'm
Mhm.
guilty of falling into it at one point.
Mhm.
Spiritual
Oh yeah.
ego.
I hear you. Yeah, me too. It's a big thing, and to me, it's an ongoing humbling
Yeah.
of the self structure.
Hmm.
I've been through many incarnations of the Dan character, and
Yeah, I
you
feel
know,
that.
at
Uh-huh.
the beginning, I really like, especially after having like a peak experience. There was a part of the Dan structure that really thought it was special in some way, and really latched on to that experience, and just started learning everything
Mm.
about spirituality and awakening and samadhi, and it got quite annoying for people around me, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
I can
yeah.
imagine. Yeah, that's part of the spiritual ego package too, is the sort of evangelicalizing. I think that's a word. Yeah,
Mhm.
even becoming an evangelical with it, trying to, bring people to the other side, trying to bring them to the
Yeah,
promised land, tell them the good news,
yeah,
but it's not that easy.
yeah, and it's really very prominent. It's something I've really noticed with people, everyone who, at a retreat, someone will have a glimpse of their true nature, and before they know it, they're like writing in a journal, planning a book, and
Yeah.
then they're ready to go on tour, and just
Yeah.
start telling the world about it, and
Yeah.
and it's like the mind will find these ways to appropriate it,
Hmm.
almost immediately. Just at the first glimpse sometimes for some people. So
Yeah.
yeah, the mind is just tenacious, and yeah, I think the biggest thing, the spiritual ego and spiritual bypassing is part of that as well, where
Mm.
it's like we'll have an awakening, but there's in order to stabilize it, there may be all of this work that has to happen, stuff in the unconscious that still needs to be faced and brought up, and fears that have to be moved through, and all of that. And there's this deep rewiring, bringing consciousness into the somatic field, and so there's these. It's like two dimensions that we're working in. We're on one hand, Ken Wilber says it's about waking up and growing up. So the waking up is realizing we're not this conditioned self, and the growing up is evolving the conditioned self,
Mm.
so that it becomes this better container, I guess, so that awareness can sort of shine through it.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's well said. I never heard that one before. I like that though. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So let me
Mm-hmm.
ask you this one. How does the container seem to change? Because there is seemingly a different will that comes about within the container, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there some kind of correlation between all of our containers that we're working toward in our change, in our growing up process? Like, where is this all going, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love Aldous Huxley had this term. He actually wrote a book called the Perennial Philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
and so my feeling is there's something, everybody has a sort of unique, um, I guess, expression of who and what they are. There's a uniqueness, or unique individuation of the soul
Mm-hmm.
in everyone, but yet each human being is going through this sort of evolutionary journey, and that evolutionary journey has certain sort of markers, the same way like an oak tree, growing from an acorn, it's always going to grow into something that resembles an oak tree, so, and a human being is the same.
Mm.
There's a certain evolution happening within a human being, so it's going to go through these certain stages of development. So
Yeah.
to me, that perennial teaching is, um, when you look at the different religions, or spiritual traditions, some of them um, tap into this in different ways. Some of them have a very complete map of that perennial teaching. Some of them just tap into little parts of that evolutionary process. So, so to me, I see that as moving. from sort of an egoic entity on one end of the spectrum, to a sort of lightening up or enlightening, activating, growing, the inner lotus. So the chakras are part of this, moving from the root chakra to the crown chakra. There's this energetic unfolding, and the inner energy becomes more and more subtle at each point, and at each sort of developmental stage, we get to explore different facets of life as
Mm-hmm.
well. So it is our life. It's the whole human journey.
Mm-hmm.
So as we move through these stages, there are different things that start to come online within the self structure as well. So activating the third eye, the inner wiring, and just having a capacity to experience different facets of the matrix,
Mm-hmm.
and with each level there are different new possibilities for attachment as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So if one of my intuition centers comes online, and I really start getting super interested in that, then that could sort of stall out the evolutionary process until I've recognized that or made it conscious, and
Mm-hmm.
then the energy can continue on its journey.
Interesting. But essentially, it comes down to, from your description, a flourishing of the soul's experience. Like as we elevate the consciousness, there seems to be an ever increasing novelty that comes with that evolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that. Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
got the imagery that when you were speaking of the oak tree, like a seed being planted in us, like our soul is the seed within the body and it's growing through us. And we're
mm-hmm,
flourishing, metamorphosizing into something else, who knows what or where. I feel it
mm-hmm,
though. I feel there is something kind of growing within my being. And
mm-hmm,
it comes down to just experience, experiencing more than just the pleasures and aversions of the body, just more than just the animal, it seems to me. Like where we're going is evolving more into this novel, almost movie like experience or video game. And yeah, it's quite wonderful to have that like intuitive like sense of where the future is going. It's quite wonderful. But yeah, it was a
mm-hmm,
good description from you, man. I
mm-hmm.
feel that totally.
Awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love in some of the ancient Vedic traditions. They talk about these sheaths of the soul,
Mm,
and in our world right now, we're really just existing. Most of humanity is existing on the mental and
yeah.
physical
It's
sheaths.
rather shallow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So when we awaken that energy, there's a whole energetic experience. There's a higher mind experience. When we go to sleep at night, the quality of experience, like the dreaming, there's a possibility of going into these other realms, astral realms, or whatever you want to call them, but just different possibilities for experience. And yeah, so there's, to me, it's like we're in, you know, humanity is in like the early stages of a video game where
Mm-hmm.
they're just exploring like level 1 and 2,
Yeah,
but there's all these other levels that could be explored.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And it's all about the experience, right? People like to ask the most cliche question, what's the meaning of life, right? Why am I here? Who am I? When it really comes down to it, it's just about the experience. It's like art for art's sake. You're just supposed to have a good time. Contrary to popular belief, you're supposed to enjoy this experience. So it
Yeah,
seems like the journey, the path is the path to that, right? It's the path to actually having a good experience. Put it
yeah.
simply. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Alan Watts. There's a talk I love where he says it's kind of like a musical thing.
Mm.
So you don't ask, what's the purpose of the song,
Yeah, you just
of
listen.
a piece of music.
Hmm.
It's not to get to the end or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like the purpose is the music itself.
Yeah.
It is the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the music of life is the purpose. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's learning to dance or kind of groove with what's happening.
Exactly.
That's it. Yeah,
It's a dance of life for sure.
yeah.
It's a
Hmm.
cliche. We've all heard it before. I'm pretty sure we've all heard it. The journey is the destination, right? That is a
Hmm.
cliche at this point, but that's the truth, man. It
Yeah,
seems like as I go further along this path, the cliches become truer and truer.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
There is something unfolding as well. There is, I think there are flowerings of a human life. There are times where the self structure is in full bloom.
Mm,
And but every point on that journey, awareness is there. And we
exactly.
can be fully awake, fully embraced. Whatever's happening within the self structure.
Mm,
The most mundane, if we're fully awake, the most mundane phenomena is just incredible. It's
yeah,
beyond words.
beyond
And if
words.
we can have a direct experience.
Yeah, it's quite miraculous.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you feel as though in that miracle also is a transcendent of your bodily death, like of your bodily demise? Like there's something that I know Gary's gonna go away, Dan's gonna go away, but there's something, and not even a thing, that transcends that life and death duality, right? And that is
Yeah.
the miracle. That's really what holds us all back is the fear of dying, the fear of the sense of lowercase s self going away and
Hmm.
dying.
Hmm.
But there's
Yeah.
something that is just beyond that. It's hard to
Yeah.
pinpoint, hard to describe, but if you know, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Impossible. But we can only directly come into contact with that.
Mm,
That's I sometimes call it the primordial awareness that is always
mm,
here.
mm-hmm,
And my first real getting of that, of what this is all about, was at a Zen center where I had an experience, and the words are totally wrong with this, because if I say I had an experience, I don't mean the
yeah,
Dan character had an experience, um, but what happened was, there was an awakening, on the cushion, but then that night mind and body dropped off completely. So normally when that happens, you just go into deep sleep, and there's nothing. But there was a continuity
mm,
that was there. It was like the sense of I didn't go anywhere. It was like I was there, but it wasn't me in any sense of a character or a being, or there was no witness or being witnessed, but yet there was something which you can't say what that is.
mm-hmm,
And to me, that awakening on that kind of causal level, it's clear proof that, if there's no phenomena, there's no phenomena, mind and body are gone, yet there's a sense that I still am. So when that happened for me, uh, it was a game changer. It was like,
mm,
holy crap, like
yeah,
this is real. Like this is we are, whatever this primordial awareness is, it's playing in this matrix in all these different forms.
mm-hmm,
And but this whole matrix can disappear, and yet this awareness is still there.
mm,
And it's not an awareness of, it's not part of that duality. It's something much, you can't even say ancient. It's beyond time.
yeah,
It's just,
exactly, yeah,
absolutely ineffable what that
yeah,
is. In
truly,
the Heart Sutra in Buddhism, he says, gate gate paragate. It's like gone, gone, far beyond, absolutely beyond. That awakened
gone,
heart is.
mm-hmm, yeah, man,
Mm.
it's powerful stuff. You gotta die before you die, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
and
classical
then
saying.
you realize you were never born in the first place.
Yeah,
That's the crazy part.
that's the
That
joke.
that's the joke. It's, yeah, that awareness was never, was never born. It was never in prison. It never needed to be liberated. It just is what it is. It's just sort of here, for this show.
For the show.
Yeah,
Exactly. And that's the thing too, right? Is once you realize that, the show goes on still. I mean, in the show, even I think the show becomes even more beautiful. The divine play of Lila, I don't know, it's just it becomes a
yeah,
little different. You get to like take part in the show per se. It's just different, man. The show always goes on. That's the thing. The show never
yeah,
stops. So it just becomes even better when you recognize that it's kind of funny to say when you recognize you don't exist, but it's not even it's beyond that. I don't know. It's like it's beyond even just a label of you don't exist or there's no self. It's when you have this sort of recognition, it just makes everything a lot more beautiful. Even the sucky parts of life too. There's a silver lining in everything. That's what I've come to find. Silver lining in every duality. In all darkness, there is still that little glimmer of light with this sort of realization I've come to find. Not saying I'm perfect and I see it all the time. I'm not an enlightened being, but I think that is the path to enlightenment, or where it leads to, if I could sort of describe it, it's being able to see the light in all of the seeming illusion of darkness that we find ourselves in, see the light in all of Maya. I think that's really what it leads to, so that one can truly play.
yeah.
Play. If you don't become like children, then you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven, as Jesus said. So I
Hmm.
really think that's what it's about and where it's leading us towards, be able to play our part in the divine orchestra, the divine show of Lila. Yeah.
Yeah, nicely said. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
man.
love it. To me,
Thanks.
that's it. If we don't know that it's a play and a show, and we're taking it seriously, then
Mm,
there's suffering. And
yeah.
but once we know that it is a play,
You're
then
free.
yeah, we're free, and it doesn't mean we don't get hooked sometimes.
Yeah.
I still get hooked.
Mm-hmm.
If the matrix has strong enough charge, it can hook, unless you're like, those great masters like Ramana Maharshi or Jesus, or
Yeah.
like those were the guys you couldn't hook them.
You can't
But
hook them.
so
Yeah.
that's like one end of the spectrum where you could nail them to a cross or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're not gonna they're
Not gonna
still
budge. Mm-hmm.
still emanating love and compassion and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, but that's it. To me, that's what this path is about. Is the sadhana that we're doing makes us more kind of resilient. Makes
Mm-hmm.
the self structure able to sort of drop and surrender more and more in increasingly difficult situations.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if I look back 25 years ago, I had very little capacity to not react back then, but now it takes a greater charge um, for me to become identified with
Yeah.
whatever's happening. And I think that's just the measure of
Mm-hmm.
the work that we do.
Amen to that. I think, yeah,
Mhm.
that's what all of these the perennial philosophy is leading us to. That it's all religions, all belief systems, all forms the Dharma takes is leading us to that essence that the saints embody. It's that a letting go of the seeming attachment to the phenomena of the body, and being able to follow some kind of divine will and play with that. And yeah, that's it, man. I think that's really what it comes down to. I like to say the truth is one, and the wise call it by many names. And there's countless names, countless narratives, and
Mhm.
countless pointers.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
yeah, and luckily we do live in a time, right? The time that we're in, where we have, yes, the matrix is very dense for sure. There's endless hooks, but we
Yeah.
also do, thankfully, the silver lining to that is we live in a time where there are examples such as Jesus and Ramana Maharshi and many, many other sages that you can see and take as an example for your own life. See how they lived and turn that and transmutate their words and their living into your sort of living. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's wonderful that we can have that. It's really wonderful, and wonderful too. Also, the stuff that you make, because you know, it's I meant to get into this a little earlier, but your work is also very, very valuable, and I think reaching a lot of people. It reached me, and it affected me. So yeah, I thank you for that. I thank you for creating and aiding the Dharma in that way. The power of film. It's very powerful. The power of video. It's
Mhm.
wonderful to be able to have that at our disposal to not only view video but also create through it. Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing time, and to be able to reach people
Mm-hmm.
through the internet, things like YouTube. It's incredible.
Yeah.
When I created Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds, I literally had no idea, how to reach people or anything. I just created this little YouTube channel, and it just happened. I had
Yeah.
no marketing skills or anything, and yeah, so it's an interesting time where we can put things out there, and it's almost like if they're meant to spread and take off, they will. They are like
Yeah.
little seeds, and so the possibilities are amazing right
For
now.
sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is wonderful.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
it's wonderful to be able to come on here and talk to you as well. Talk to you and others. It's so cool. We take it for granted, right? Because
mm.
it's literally in our pockets at all times now.
Yeah.
All this stuff is a click away. But when you really sit down and think about it, all of the dharma that we have at our disposal, the fact that we even know the path is a thing, that we have the capacity to see outside of the illusion of the self structure, that's a miracle in itself. We're not completely in the darkness. The matrix doesn't have a complete hold over us. So it is a miracle to be
Yeah.
alive during this time. If we have multiple lives, this one's very special. That's what I like to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, it does. Back to that river analogy, it feels like we're hitting like a very fast sort of part of the river,
Hmm.
and there is an acceleration
Yeah.
happening right now for sure,
Yeah, definitely.
on both ends of the spectrum, the suffering and
Mm.
the madness of the matrix. It almost feels like a we're going into like a dark night of the soul collectively,
Yeah.
where if you think about the samskaras that have to come up, we're starting to see all the distasteful things that were hidden in the shadows, of all our institutions and structures, and the things that sort of make up the world, and it's all being brought to the light right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if we focus just on that negative, it seems like, it's pretty chaotic and crazy. But if you look at it from that sort of purification perspective, where these
Yeah.
things have to be seen, they have to be brought out into the light and made conscious, then it is actually a time of awakening, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like the two kind of go together.
I agree. It's
Mm-hmm.
harmony through conflict. It's
Mm-hmm.
how we learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's for the better. I think we're moving toward a better world. I really do think so. It's I feel it at least. And I don't know. That's all you need is when you feel it. You just the sort of a just some kind of resonance that knows that this is it. Even in the so-called shitty aspects of life and the darkness, it's all for some kind of reason, some kind of greater order that goes beyond words. You
Mm-hmm.
know, goes beyond me, goes beyond you. But there's something going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's something going on, man. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, where it's
Yeah.
going, but I think it's to a better place. We shall
Yeah.
see. Maybe I'm a little
Yeah.
idealistic, but we shall see.
I think the
Yeah.
the awakened world, is like when we awaken each individually, then it really is. It's such a paradox where people sometimes think like awakening is like there's this little me that will awaken out of the world, and like
Mm,
the world is asleep, but I'm going to be awake.
yep.
But the reality is this flip where when awakening happens, it's like we see the one source playing in this game. So the world is awake. The world is that one source. It's the awareness is awake. Always, it's just always there. So by awakening myself, literally the world is perfect as it is.
Hmm.
There's no problem. It's like in Buddhism, they say the world of samsara and the world of nirvana are the same world.
Yeah.
There's no difference there.
Hmm.
It's just, if I'm in conflict with the world,
Yeah.
then there's suffering. That's samsara, and
Yep.
the endless cycles of suffering.
Yep. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. That's it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Light, dark, life, death, samsara, nirvana, yin yang.
Mm-hmm.
It's all perfect. It's all different
Mm-hmm.
sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
Two different sides of the same coin. It's all perfect. I think we can probably start to wrap it up at that note. You know, we can go on and on about this.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's all perfect is a perfect way to
Right?
wrap it up. Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, man. Do you have anything else you want to say? You want to just keep it at that?
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know if your viewers are interested in we one thing that is kind of new on Awaken the World is we put together this online course that people can do. It's like a 7-day intensive sadhana where you can just build your own retreat in your home. There's all kinds of teachings and pointers and breath work and sound meditation, all kinds of stuff to kind of support your journey. Um, that's available if people want to connect. And to me, what I love, talking about it is one thing, but I love to kind of walk people through the actual
Hmm.
experience, creating those conditions of no escape so that they can
Yeah.
have direct experience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Facilitating, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I'll put everything down in the description for
Mhm.
anyone to check out. But I appreciate you coming on here. Dan, this was an awesome talk. You are a very wise individual. I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your time, effort, and wisdom with me and anybody that listens in the future. So please keep doing your thing. And that's it, man. Keep on keeping on. I wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you.
Peace and love to you, and peace and love to anybody that listened.
Mhm.
Goodbye.